Hello everyone. Uh, this is my first video after almost 11 years. So let me just introduce myself. I am Zeenat and I am a QA engineer working from home. I'm living in Delhi. So I made this video because there is a question in my mind that I'm a QA engineer. I have an experience of 9-10 years. So but in these 9 years, like almost 7 years, I worked on the AWS services. So like from the starting, like from I think from the 2017, I always like all the deployment work. Then like we had 3 environments: QA, staging, and prod, that most of the organization have. And starting from 2017, the QA in my team, the QA was responsible for whole deployment thing on the QA environment. So from the starting of my career, I would say I have worked on the AWS services, like all the deployment things, deployment of the jars. Like if I would describe my role, my responsibilities were earlier when I was a fresher, I would say. So creating the EC2 instances, creating the AMI, setting up the EC2 instances with all the dependencies like Java, AWS CLI, and all the instances were Linux instances. And what should be the configuration of the EC2 instances, then deploying the jar on that Linux system, and then so deployment work also includes multiple steps, multiple things. And while setting up the machine, like you have to install or and make it compatible to run your application. So all of those things, all the troubleshooting things. Then while growing in my role, I started creating the load balancer, the target groups, the security groups. Like I was creating the lambda functions to like automate some task, the deployment task. Then automating that, making it part of the like automating the process basically. Like I have also worked on creating, like cleaning up the security groups daily on the based on the tags, because we used to do some whitelisting, some IP whitelisting in our security groups of their like persons, their with IP address, their local IP address. So we used to clean up those because of the security reasons. So basically I have written the many lambda functions to automate the data setup task, to automate the jar setup task, to automate the cleanup of the security groups. Okay, so like and I have created the end-to-end setup of to make the application available to the user. Like user, here is the dev or the QA member, anyone, like, right? And creating the load balancers, creating the target groups, like creating the security groups, and setting up all these things, the right paths. Then like while growing up, I have done end to end, like end to end R&D on EFS, and implemented EFS in my team, where earlier we were using EBS, and then we moved to EFS. So how to configure EFS, what are the all possible throughputs available, what are the cost estimations. I have done the end to end work for EFS. And then like many CI/CD pipelines, right? Blue green deployment. I have created the blue green deployment of the web application. Okay, I have written the cloud formation. I have not written from the scratch, but it was already there in our team. But I have written like enhancement scripts, like for blue green deployment there was a change, there were some new APIs coming, so we have to add, like make changes also in the our stacks, cloud formation stacks. So there I made changes, multiple changes in the security group. For the load balancer stack, we have different stack like load balancer stack, APIs, deployment stack. Okay, so I've made all these changes in the like later of my work. I have done the cloud formation, I have written the Ansible scripts, I have written the cloud formation scripts, I have done the end-to-end deployment. I've been part, like I was the person who introduced the Git CI/CD pipelines and implemented it to end for the deployment purpose. I have done many tasks, like all these tasks and many more, which I do not remember now. But so I would say like later in my career, like from last 4 years, I was the part of more from the deployment, more from the process automation side, because I was part of a single team, like 477, I think, yes, 6-7 years I was part of a single team, and I knew end to end working of that team. So in my later years in the same team, I was mostly part of the process automation. And process automation means like all AWS. I was using the all AWS services and the Git CI/CD pipelines to automate everything end to end. I have worked on QA items in my later year of experience, but there are very few items, like any critical thing that they believe that I should do. Okay, and I have been interested in Git pipelines, not Git pipelines with AWS services, like DevOps work basically, from the very starting. Now I want to switch. Like this is my question. I don't say that this will be a switch. I believe I was working as a DevOps engineer. Because I was working on the DevOps thing. My title is QA engineer, senior software QA engineer 2. I'm in a senior position. Now when I think of a switch, I'm putting it like I have worked on DevOps items. I think like from the last 4-5 years, I'm majorly involved in the DevOps work. Then what should I do? What should I say to justify with this? Because I'm getting calls. I have getting calls for DevOps engineer, but they ask me a question that your profile is QA. So when I say them that this was my role, this was my responsibilities, so they don't understand it. I don't say that it's their problem, but we should also, like, I should also be able to justify this. Please help me. Like, what should I say? How to convince them about my responsibilities, about my, like, that I've worked as a DevOps engineer in my, because there is a DevOps culture in my team. People ask that what is DevOps? What does DevOps means? DevOps is a culture where everyone knows, everyone works for the deployment. This is like what I believe. Dev operations. So there was no a specific role, to be very, like, to clear the roles. What were the roles in my team? Like, what other members were doing? They were developers. There were developers, and there were QA engineers only. There were no cloud engineers. We were the team. We were, like, only responsible for the end-to-end development, QA, and deployment. So we were taking care of the deployment, end-to-end deployment. We were responsible for taking it to prod, to create the CloudFormation scripts, to write the Ansible, to for the blue-green, we had blue-green deployment. So we were doing that. So how to convince the other, like, companies? Please help me. I really need suggestions. I don't want to lie because I have worked on it.